You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. And today, we're pretty much talking about Simon Kinberg's new trilogy and how he was influenced by Andor. And we're going to get into all kinds of different discussion because it doesn't seem like you could talk that much about this. But actually, there's a couple of things that I want to bring up for you, obviously. And then, of course, the rest of the audience. And yes, I'm already aware we're probably going to make a bunch of Few Good Men jokes, where Kathleen Kennedy is just like, who's going to do it? You, Kinberg?
There it is.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I figured, look, let's just get that out of the way now.
Out the way.
Because that's basically what, if you guys haven't seen A Few Good Men, then you have no idea what we're talking about. But if you have, you might remember the scene. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how Star Wars news was dead for a while, and then suddenly we're starting to get things ramping up again. I don't know if it's because, maybe it was like a summer type of a standby thing or something, and fall's coming
and a vacation.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe they're going to ramp it up or what. But just to frame the discussion, and you can go ahead. You submitted the article. I think this is your idea, right? Was it mine?
Nope, yours.
It was mine. Oh, well, you can still talk about it. My computers are running the production. You can run the article.
Run the meeting. Run the meeting.
That's right. This one, I forgot. This one was mine. All right. Well, it still works because the way that I was thinking about framing this discussion, of course, we could talk about the actual news about, Simon Kinberg's trilogy he's very much inspired by the Andor series. But where it's going to be interesting is that everybody is celebrating, saying, yeah, that's great, because obviously Andor is probably the most successful. I would say even more so than The Mandalorian from a critical and even fan-based type of, like an acclaim, right? Like it's sort of like the thinking man Star Wars, the adult Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
People have used phrases like that. I mean, there's been a lot of things thrown around about how this is Star Wars for people who aren't necessarily into Star Wars, because obviously it's not dealing with the Jedi, the Sith, a lot of the fantasy elements. It's a little bit more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like a lot of the showrunners and a lot of the producers, filmmakers, directors, whatever, are taking their cue, as they should to a degree, and looking at the success of Andor and the fact that both critics and fans alike love the show, and they're saying, hey, we should, maybe move in this direction. But the question is, and this obviously just in talking about it and, just telling everybody, okay, this is the contents of what this article is saying. The question is, should they? Like, should everything follow the Andor template? Because you could really make the argument that, A New Hope doesn't. Empire Strikes Back doesn't.
Well, yeah, because they're made by the originator,
Yeah, but I mean, it's a filmmaking style, though. What I'm talking about is I know
exactly what you mean.
My fear is that they're going to go off into this, almost like what they did to the DCEU at first. What Zack Snyder did, where you make everything a little bit dark, you make everything a little bit less fantastical. You take it out of the comic book realm and into this more grounded thing. And in some projects, that works. Like, I mean, even though people don't necessarily think of it as part of the DCEU, really, but like the Joker movie. That was, for that project, that made perfect sense to do that. But you wouldn't want to use that as a template for like every DCEU thing moving forward.
Right. Well, here, and this is you bring up, you kind of in the ballpark of my initial concern, and that is Um, if you want to mimic Andor, the only thing I want you to mimic is it being good, because and that's the thing. It's just that it's that simple for me. The problem is that like every nut doesn't deserve the same wrench, and it's one of those
when you
things
said
where
that, I was thinking
it's like my
like
grandpa Willie.
walnuts or, and I'm like,
Oh,
really? You crack on walnut or something with a
with
wrench? But
a
then,
wrench? No.
nuts, it's kind of like, all right, fools.
Yeah.
I'm on the same page. I'm sure everybody else instantly, got the reference, but it took me a minute.
But no, what I don't want is, like you said, you were definitely in that ballpark of, everything doesn't need to be dark, everything doesn't need to be grounded, because people have to remember what Andor is. Andor is taking place with the story of Andor. And that's the thing. It all goes, as we've been saying, been preaching since day one of this podcast. It's all about the story and what does the story need. So when you're talking about things like, okay, government, war, policy, takeover. Okay, yeah, I expect more. That's where your gritty, your war torn look, that whole vibe, it makes sense. But people have to remember the other part of Star Wars is the lore. And my thing is, Andor did a fantastic job with communicating and showcasing uh, what was possibly going on in this world of Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal job. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that you understand how to tell things in a somewhat mystical fantasy world. Because if you're worried about you can't take something that's designed to be, like you said, fantastic, and put it, and nail it to the ground. That it defeats its purpose. Because the whole purpose of it is to be mystical in the air. It's, you can't necessarily grab hold to it. And so
Right.
that is the problem with a lot of things in filmmaking, is that everybody wants to. It's no different than another case in point of movie reference is when they took the TV show 21 Jump Street and made it a comedy. It wasn't a comedy. Like, the TV show was a drama, but you took something that was a drama and you decided to almost make a spoof of it, almost, in a way. So it was just kind of like,
Well, they did that with a lot of those properties too. I mean,
yeah,
some of them were treated
Starsky and
with,
Hutch,
yeah. I mean, no,
another one.
that one walked the line probably a little bit between maybe an
True.
action comedy more
Right.
than how 21 Jump Street was, where it was a spoof. But no,
Exactly.
You're absolutely right, because they do have the option of, when they remake these things, are they going to do a faithful adaptation of the material, or are they going to do something a little bit different? And the arguments go both ways, right? I mean, on one hand, you'll have these classic properties, and, in some cases you go, well, I mean, why would I really remake this? I mean, unless I can bring something new to it. And I think that that's where they're going. But yeah, because what we're talking about is a continuation rather than a remake of something. Like, for instance, if they wanted to remake a project that Star Wars has already done, maybe recently, it would probably be too recent to do this, but just as an example, you just take something and say, okay, I want to remake this more in an Andor style.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the Obi-Wan thing, right? Like you say, okay, Obi-Wan thing was cool, but maybe we should have done this a little bit differently, and they decide to do that. That would be a little bit different than, okay, we're going to make stuff moving forward in this style, because from what I understand, I don't know, do you have the article open right now?
Relatively.
All right, because I mean, I could have, usually I'll have my iPad on here, but I didn't do it because I didn't really think.
Yeah.
I'm so used to you having these things that I don't
And I
necessarily do
do.
it. Hey, by the
So yeah,
way,
here it is.
Universal says greetings, and Ted's with us too. Ted's
Hey Ted, hey Universal.
yeah, so that's good. And I'm sure
Um,
there's more people out there, but nobody's chatting except those guys. But
but
here's the
yeah,
thing:
it
you have it open now, right?
yes.
Okay, because in breeze through it, I think that his trilogy seems like it's taking place after episode 9 because they
Hmm.
have some reference in there as like Rey is going to be kind of like an Obi-Wan character.
Yep. So it says, although we don't know much about Kinberg's trilogy at this point, other than rumors of that the movies will see Rey in an Obi-Wan role, which suggests its place in Star Wars timeline after the sequels. Kinberg's recent comments provides an exciting update. Um, Speaking with Screen Rant, Simon Kinberg confirmed that his trilogy would draw inspiration from Andor Season 2, which concluded this year, cemented this as one of Star Wars' best TV shows. Many would, in fact, argue that it's the best overall. There are myriad factors at work that work in that, but this one is uniquely felt.
So yeah, it's basically taking place after episode 9. And it's
Hmm.
the thing that also concerns me a little bit about it. And again, I mean, I think a lot of fans would see this as a positive thing, or I should say a strictly positive thing. Because I don't think you're in that camp either, where it's like, I don't see it as a negative thing, but I'm not necessarily popping the proverbial champagne corks just yet because
Hmm.
I see some negative aspects if they want to make this like Andor. Now, again, he did say, taking inspiration from Andor. That doesn't mean he's going to essentially make it like that. And you could even
Right.
argue that the sequel trilogy was just so insanely over the top in a lot of cases. You could actually make the argument that maybe a sequel era trilogy that's continuing on, they could actually right the ship. They can course correct. And if they made it more grounded like Andor, but again, it goes back to what you're saying. It depends on what the plot of this thing is.
Yeah, because when you say inspired by, right? I mean, that could mean
A
a
lot of
myriad of
things.
things.
Yes.
That could mean a lot of things. And of course, most people's knee-jerk reaction is going to be like, oh, it's gonna look or basically be like Andor, as far as story or concept.
Hmm.
Andor, like, and that's why I said, like, the only thing I want them inspired by Andor is the fact that it's good. I mean, I know it kind of probably sounds funny when I said it, but I mean, I'm serious
No, I mean
because
that's a really good point.
and the thing is, at least Andor was thought out. It was well acted. You had everything kind of had a plan. It was definitive. You knew eventually like where the stories were going. You had interesting characters, great dialogue. Yeah, there were slow moments at first. I mean, throughout at first, but eventually, especially when season 2 hit, like it definitely kicked up. But the thing is that see, I want them, and I think when people say it like that, because and I'm wondering if he's using it as a as a way to kind of like control the fans' excitement. Because if I'm inspired by Andor, it's like, ooh, he's inspired by Andor. Andor was great, so this is going to be great. Like because Andor was a successful show, no different if I said I was inspired by Mandalorian. Well, most people in general like Mandalorian. Even season 3, it may not have been as great, but it was still good.
Well,
Just
what
may
it
have had,
was,
and maybe not as good as the rest of them.
well, I mean, people universally pretty much pan season 3, but what it was that nobody destroyed the show. Like, in other words, it wasn't enough to ruin people's view of the
Tarnish,
show.
yeah.
Yeah, it didn't tarnish the image of the show. It was like, all right, whatever.
Didn't tarnish the Mandalorian armor. But here's the thing though, and when we're see, I have even the whole like, even though it's just a rumor, so I'm going to keep my. If the rumor is true that she's taking on more of an Obi-Wan esque role, I'm kind of concerned even by that because the character Ray, I mean, we don't know. Like, yeah, we can see that she's powerful or whatnot, but we don't see any wisdom. We don't see any experience really. So
Hmm.
it's like, okay, if you're going to make her this General Kenobi, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars. Like, okay, when you hear that, you hear General Kenobi. Okay, and then when we go back to, and then you kind of see how Obi-Wan was with Luke. Granted, at the time when we saw, A New Hope, he's already established. So, and that's the first film. So we have nothing to really, we just have to take them at their word that he's, you know, that guy. But it's further confirmed when we go back to see his beginning in Phantom Menace, and we see the growth and the maturation of Obi-Wan through the Clone Wars animation, through episode 2 and 3. So by the time, so now it gives even more, and then now we have the Obi-Wan series, which even gives more credence to why Obi-Wan and who Obi-Wan is in episode 4. So we have a body of work now to really solidify Obi-Wan, even though we already kind of saw briefly throughout the trilogy. But even then, it's like, okay, he always seemed wise.
Right.
But see, the thing is, we've seen Rey at her beginning already. That's the difference. We've seen her at her beginning and where she's supposed to have arrived at her Jedi moment. And to be quite honest, like, she still hasn't earned it in my book. So now you're trying to make her more like an Obi-Wan character. And it's like, well, we haven't seen her grow to a point where we can even believe that. I know a lot of people might even say like, oh, well, what about Luke? We didn't see him, after he, but at least again, we saw him in his beginning. We saw him barely being able to, deflect a little droid on the Falcon, to eventually confronting Vader for the first time. Vader basically toying with him with using one hand as a lightsaber, lopping off his hand, and then coming back in Return of the Jedi. And Vader is kind of like, oh yeah, this ain't the same kid. So at least even in that body of work, we've seen Luke's maturation, where we can really, we can really say that like, okay, he's earned it. And then again, we see him in Mandalorian, where he's cutting through, you know, um, and again, we know that he's the grandson of the Force, so we have more to stand. He has more to stand on. Ray, in my opinion, just seems like a character that they like. Okay, well, in order to really validate her power, let's make her a Palpatine. And okay, yeah, she confronts. You know, one could even say her battle against the Emperor. Did she? Is she? Did she really beat him? Because you got to think about it. She had, well, at that time, Ben Solo helping out a little bit, but then she had all the Jedi help her. So it's like, did she really do it herself? I mean, at least Luke knew that, like, Vader, that was part of Vader's redemption. He bounced, the
Hmm.
Emperor over into the reactor. But at least, like, okay, he sacrificed himself, and he knew he had to do that in order to get his father to turn. He had to put himself on the line. So again, Vader's redemption came at a cost, and it had more weight, and there's a whole lot more going on with that. Versus Rey, I haven't seen her win anything. She didn't really beat Kylo, in my opinion, because he was distracted because Han popped up.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot there, right? I mean, all of what you're saying is basically it. Ray really hasn't earned it. I mean, as far as Luke goes, I know people make the same argument with Luke, but we see Luke, you alluded to all this, but we see him basically training. Now, it was a shorter window, but it was a beginning, middle, and end. You see him at the beginning where he knows nothing about the Force, and he
Mm-hmm.
has a little bit of raw talent, and he has a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of raw Force ability. Then in the middle act of the trilogy, you see him being trained. And then, of course, in the final act, a little bit of time passes, and obviously he'd been studying or something, and he got more powerful. Now, there's people that will make the argument that the same thing happened with Rey. In the beginning, first act, she didn't really know too much about the Force. And then, of course, in the middle act, she was trained by Luke, and then subsequently. But what makes it different is the fact that she already just instinctively knew a lot of this stuff, which was really,
Exactly.
really poor writing on their part. And then what
Exactly.
happened was when JJ came back, it's like, oh, well, now we got to explain why this
Mm-hmm.
person knew nothing. Oh, let's make her a Palpatine, and then that'll fix it. Which,
Yep.
I mean, in universe, it kind of does, but that's
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. In my opinion, I think it's a very good. This is going to sound um, convoluted, but it's like, on one hand, like it's cheap, but it's smart cheap.
right. Well, what it comes
It's
down
almost
to
like
is
it's
this.
almost like it's almost put it like this. Like, okay, a throw punch is kind of like, okay, yeah, that's low hanging fruit. It's effective and it always works.
Right. But here's the
So it's just
thing.
like,
And this is
you
this is
know,
this is what I think people are, because it wasn't going to go in that direction, and that's something that can't be
hmm
missed. That was JJ basically having it handed back to him, and now he's like, well, now what do I do? Because The Last Jedi was made, and he had to
hmm
do something because where the story went, I don't think was what the original intention was. And of course, we've talked about this in a lot of our past shows where there was no planning at all. That's really what happened, and that's why we were left with this convoluted mess, which is what the sequel trilogy ultimately is.
hmm
But that said, they still have the problem. If you're going to make a trilogy that takes place afterwards, that's number one, that's fine. But if you're going to
hmm
start using sequel trilogy characters, especially Rey, okay, now you're going to make her like some sort of an Obi-Wan type character. All right, whatever. Here's my question, because there's still that new Jedi Order movie or whatever it's called that, they keep threatening to make. That was
hmm
supposed to be the first movie, actually, that was
Right.
coming out
Yeah.
until it wasn't. And now it's The Mandalorian and Grogu. But where, because we know that the standalone Rey movie, as it's been told to us, is pretty much taking place 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker. Okay, cool. Because you bring her back at that point and she's kind of like an Obi-Wan character, I can accept that because 15 years is a long time. And then if you want to go in and fill in the gaps, so like, okay, here's, she found some like undead Jedi master or something to try. I mean, who knows? But the point is if you want to say, okay, like in 15 years, she's kind of like an Obi-Wan-ish type character, fine. But the
hmm
question is, where does Kinberg's trilogy fall? If he's using Rey, is this, where in this does that fall? Because is
Yeah, we
that
know
what's
it's
going to,
post. We know it's post sequel, but we
it
don't know
is.
if it's 1 year, 2 years, or 30 years.
Well,
You
and
know.
maybe this is going to be maybe they're making the movie that fills in the gap first, and then this new Jedi Order thing. I mean, see, it was really surprising to me that Rey was even mentioned in this because I wasn't sure. Maybe he's the one that was supposed to. I don't know. Maybe he was supposed to make it. It's tough. Let me get this one in. Ted chatted in a while ago. He says, all too
Mm.
often people see a successful project and copy the tone and not the quality of production. And you ended up with too much inferior copies and not enough high quality stories.
Amen, Ted.
Yeah, and I mean that pretty much goes into what we've been saying, right? I mean, you
hmm
you have this issue where, and you brought this up actually at the beginning when you first started talking about this, where people will often copy the tone and they'll copy everything, but they don't have necessarily a good story, right? I mean,
hmm
and it also comes down to, should they be copying the tone and everything? And then, of course,
Mhm.
we talked about how, well, it really depends on the story you're going to tell. Okay, great. But we still don't even know. And this is what bothers me about when they drop these little nuggets of news or whatever you want to call it, because you're dropping these things that are just going to serve to concern the fans. It would have been nice if they had just, look, I don't need every detail and every character that's going to pop up in this thing, but at least say, hey, this is a trilogy. It's going to involve Rey. Here's kind of the rough storyline. This is around where it's going to fall, timeline wise. And there you go. And I can, then if you want to say, oh, and I've been inspired by Andor and we're going to keep it somewhat grounded and, I don't know if they're going to make it dark or whatever, but I mean, at least you could say these are the elements of Andor that I am inspired by, and in fact, am going to
Right.
use in this trilogy. And now that we
Right.
have an overview of what this thing is about, or at least a direction, that kind of thing. But we don't know anything about this. And so you're
No,
telling
yeah.
me, you're gonna like make this thing, or at least you're inspired by Andor in making this thing, and we don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's all valid, and don't get me wrong. Like Simon Kinberg is a phenomenal director. He's done some great projects,
Did
and
he do
that's
the
that's
X-Men
the
movies?
yeah. He did the X-Men movies. He
Like the
did
Days of Future Past or something,
Days of
or
Future Past.
Origins or
Yep, he
whatever.
did Apocalypse.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
did Jumper with Hayden Christensen. He did um uh, uh some other of the Marvel franchise movies as well. I want to say, oh, he did Logan. He did.
Yeah, Logan was a big one. And honestly, there's a lot of parallels between Logan and Andor. I
I was
mean,
just
in
about to say
tone
that
and everything.
exactly. But again, like I say, if that's the so, here's my thing though, and this is the direction. I don't want Star Wars to go into a direction where everything is grounded and you lose that element of the lore, and that's um my whole thing. Even when they did the X-Men, I mean, well, the X-Men always was kind of a darkish kind of thing, so I could see why they kind of made the X-Men dark. They just didn't do the bright costumes, which we were all looking for. But yeah, the concept of it, is a dark concept that they're always
See,
fighting
but
against.
again, here's the thing that makes me, this is what's funny to me. So
Hmm.
they do this because they think that this is what everybody wants. When in fact, Deadpool and Wolverine comes out and everybody loses their minds because we finally get to see Wolverine in the actual comic book costume.
Hmm.
It's like, well, you could have given this to us a long time ago. And it's like they keep thinking they're doing one of two things. They're either saying, look, this is what the audience wants, and they're completely wrong about it. Or secondly, they're going, okay, how do we be different? And the only way that they can think of in their heads to be different is, ooh, we have to make it dark and we have to make it monotone and we have to make it, whatever. It's like, no, you
Grounded,
can,
that's their word.
yeah, or grounded, right. And look, grounded, I mean, that makes sense, but you could be grounded and still be, look, the early Marvel movies were grounded. The first Captain America movie was grounded. The first Thor movie was grounded. The first Iron Man movie was grounded.
Hmm.
I mean, by the definition of grounded, they were, but they were still very much comic book movies. But that was the thing that actually made them so brilliant, was that they were comic book movies that you didn't necessarily have to be a comic book fan to appreciate.
Right.
Let me get this one in from Universal real quick.
Okay.
Well, actually, a couple of them. So first, Universal says, he's addressing Ted. He says they've been doing that for years, called lazy writing and taking the easy road. Absolutely, 100% agree with that.
100%.
Goes on to say nothing new. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And again, I mean, look, if there are times, and the Universal brings up a good point too. Look, I mean, there are times where they want to change the direction, make it dark, make it more muted or whatever. It works. The Joker, it worked. But again, it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. It's because the story dictated that, not
Yeah,
the filmmaker.
yeah, the story and or character, kind of demands that. So I'll even say this. So I made a reference to TV show earlier, 21 Jump Street. 21 Jump Street, was a crime drama. It was kind of gritty. So that's the whole premise of that. The 21 Jump Street that, the film was more of a comedy. So, and it didn't, for people who were fans of 21 Jump Street, definitely were like, I wasn't even a fan of it. I was like, yeah, they turned this off. So this is not, it's not giving me what I came for. Now, take something like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That was a show that was created in the 90s, and for regular television, like it was supposed to be more of the fun, lighthearted kind of hip-hop world TV show. Now when they redid the series Bel-Air and they made it more of a dramedy, I was kind of skeptical. Don't get me wrong, I was like, it worked and it still works. I love that show because I love how they're able, but that's because the show in and of itself is one that you can play with like that. You can do Will Smith, and they still keep the heart and the sense of what Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was, but they're telling it excuse me. They can tell it from a drama perspective because there was a whole lot of drama. They just didn't over dramatize it because it was because of what it was kind of created for at that time. And and for who it was for. It was for young kids. So it wasn't really necessarily designed for Bel-Air is more for like older adult, like older teens and adults. So I would say like somewhere between the ages of maybe 16 on up, where Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was more designed for like kids 8 years old to, whatever. And that's the thing is that, the story always dictates the vibe or the style in which you do something. But everybody, and I get it, like we went through a period of time where we were inundated with a bunch of superhero movies. I mean, Marvel was dropping a movie pretty much every year, and everybody got burned out. Everybody's like, okay, like I got superhero overload. Don't get me wrong, I love superhero movies, but like it's way too many coming out. It's like that's the only thing that's out right now. Like, can we get something like that takes place in real life where people don't fly around or shoot lasers out of something? Like, can we
Well,
just...
and that was Martin Scorsese's like thing, right? He was kind of like, look, this isn't real cinema, even though a lot of people went nuts about that. But I think, even though I think that ultimately he was mistaken about it, because if you look again at the earlier Marvel, like Phase 1 of the Marvel movies,
Yeah.
I would say are real cinema. Phase 3 and 4, maybe not so much. But I think where his point is accurate is exactly what you're saying. It's like, well, is there anything out there for just like a normal, can we get just like a normal movie or something, right?
Right. Stuff where it's, yeah.
Something that isn't even part of a franchise, or it creates a new franchise. Like, for instance, the Nobody franchise or the Equalizer franchise.
Mm-hmm.
As the Equalizer, that's another example, actually, we can bring in this conversation. Because they changed the tone slightly, but not much. See, when they made the film out of the Equalizer series, it worked. When they made the Miami Vice movie, it failed miserably because they changed too much of what made it so good. And that's the problem that you have. Like, here, for instance, okay, we're getting back a little bit to the whole Andor discussion, right? So, if you took a lot of what we saw in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi, because that's really where we we had heard about the whole criminal underground. It was teased a little bit in A New Hope, right? When Obi-Wan was warning him about Mos Eisley, and you have a little bit of that. Okay, there's obviously a criminal underground in the Star Wars universe. The original trilogy gives you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even the whole scene in Empire when Vader is talking to all the bounty hunters.
Well, right, exactly. So that's a good point. Where the thread basically continues.
Yeah, it kind of continues.
Jabba's got a price on my head. I got to get back and pay him off. I mean, there's a lot more of that. Primarily, we see it more in A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, especially. But it is continued in Empire Strikes Back. Okay, so fine. So now we see it in the Empire or in Return of the Jedi. Now, if they wanted to, and they should, I think, is take that. They tried to do it a little bit with the Book of Boba Fett, but they didn't do it right. Take the whole criminal underground thing and you can make an entire series out of that. Well, Lucas was going to with that whole.
I was going to say Lucas was going to do that.
I mean, but
or they could do that whole War of the Bounty Hunter thing that you.
They could do that. I mean, they could, and they started to do it with the Solo movie too, right? Where the whole Crimson Dawn and all that.
True. Yep.
They
started it and then they abandoned it. Yep.
Now, granted, I think we're going to get a little bit of that in the Darth Maul animated series, but again, these are directions that they could go. These are things that were brought to my mind when you were talking about the whole Bel Air thing, where you're taking something that was a little bit comedic and now you're adding a slightly more dramatic element to it and reshaping it a little. Still keeping, like, it's still recognizable,
right?
But they're changing the focus, whereas the focus of the series is on comedy. The focus on the new series is a little bit more dramatic and a little bit more adult. And you could do that easily with the whole smugglers and pirates and the entire criminal underground, basically. Let's see. Universal says, right now the approach is to make one Mando movie and Ahsoka show and see. Mando is projecting positively with a possible trilogy. Ahsoka is not projecting well. Well, that's really no surprise because, I mean,
right.
And again, I mean, look, you guys can go back, and I would encourage that because, of course, it boosts the views of this channel. You could go back and actually watch our review of Ahsoka Season 1, where it was interesting because we really were hyped up about that show. I mean, we thought, man, this is going to be it, man. This is going to be the thing that's going to do it, right? And it was, but it was somewhat of a disappointment because there were a lot of problems. I would say that one was like 50-50. Whereas The Acolyte was like more like 70 or 80% problem and 20 or 30%, okay, this actually works. Ahsoka basically was a 50-50, maybe even 60-40 in favor of problems. But there were a lot of cool things. And overall, I remember we kept saying during that whole review, well, we like the show. I mean, sure, you wouldn't know that sometimes because certain episodes we were bagging on a little bit more than others. But I mean, for the most part, overall, we liked it. We just said, okay, good show, but it has a lot of problems. And a lot of those stem from Dave Filoni's inexperience as a live-action director and writer. All right, fine. But Season 2, I could see people being a little skeptical about that. Now, he goes on to illuminate a little bit where he says, Starfighter is still not greenlit as they still have not completed casting. Yeah.
What's supposed to be the plot of that again?
I don't remember.
No. Okay.
I remember because the thing is, there's like a bunch of movies that are. There's a James Mangold movie, which is like the Dawn of the Jedi thing. It's like the origin of the Jedi, if you will, that basically takes place. I mean, it's pretty much an Old Republic thing. So there was there's the, legendary Rey movie that everybody was just calling like, the new Jedi Order movie or something along those lines.
Right.
there's a starfighter thing. Taika Waititi's thing apparently is still in the
Looming
ether.
around.
Yeah, it hasn't been killed. I mean, it's not being made, but it's definitely being talked about. Depending on who you ask, the Rian Johnson trilogy is either just dead in the water or he's just waiting until he has time to address it. So there's pretty much it. The starfighter thing, I remember that being a thing. And I don't remember if that was like Kinberg, because here's the thing. With Simon Kinberg, there was talk of he was going to make a movie, and then suddenly that branched into a trilogy.
Right.
And so I'm just confused. I mean, you guys chatted in if you know. I'm confused now as to which is which, because don't forget, you also, of course, it's been dead, but you had Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie.
Rogue Squadron.
You know, and that was supposed to take place after Episode 9. That was supposed to take place after The Rise of Skywalker too, and that I actually had some hope for that because that one seemed like it's going to be like Top Gun and Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you could do a lot with that. Now, see that could actually benefit from. Well,
that kind of goes into the whole grounded thing. Like for those who want to have that more grounded. See, and that's what I like. Like I like the beautiful thing about Star Wars is that you can tell stories that have nothing that have nothing to do with the lore, but still be in the universe. And then you can definitely tell stories that have to deal with the Sith, the Jedi, blah 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 blah. But you can do things like if you took the book Bloodlines, it's a whole political thriller. Like you could do that movie if you wanted to, and you don't have to really deal. I mean, aside from like mentioning Vader here and there, but it's mainly politics. If you want to take Lords of the Sith and make a movie, about the relationship between Palpatine and Vader, that's completely lore. There you go. And it's like you can tell, and both are great stories. And you could, if they're done right, they would be phenomenal movies. And it would satisfy the fans who's like, yeah, I like my Star Wars without all the sugar.
Okay, so so the whole Starfighter, that's the Sean Levy one. That's the Sean Levy one, and according to, I mean, the internet seems to believe it's coming out in 2027. That it's May 28th. So see, that's the thing. And I forgot all about that one, to be honest. But yes, you're right. They could do a lot of things, and in fact, I have often said, in the new canon, I'm not talking about the expanded universe or what's now Legends. In the new canon, you got a lot of books that are there. Just make movies out of them. There's like a built-in audience. The stories are already good. All you got to do is adapt it for film. Why are you trying to? Yeah, just do that. Trust me, the fans would be happy if you do that. I mean, it'd be
cool if like the people who read the books, like you and I, like the people who read the books, we would love to see it. But then it's almost like even if you've never read the book or don't even know, like, okay, what is Star Wars Bloodlines? What is that? And then you read the story or you see the synopsis of it, you're like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And then you go see the movie. When then you realize, oh, this is based off a book. Well, now I want to read the book.
Exactly.
See? And that's what I'm saying.
The books would feed the films. The films would feed the books.
Feed the books.
Now you have all this comic book thing. It would actually bring it more into the consciousness of people. Then you could start doing even more stuff. I mean, it just blows my mind why they don't do that. I mean, I know that sometimes, like back of course in the early expanded universe, Lucas obviously had said, well, none of that's canon. Only my films and TV shows or whatever are canon, and I'm not going to make movies out of those because they're not my stories. But there was a time where he started toying with the idea. This is after he started actually, putting characters from the expanded universe in his stuff. He even toyed with the idea, like this is in between when Revenge of the Sith came out and when he sold it. So there was that period of like 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he had actually toyed with the idea early on. This is around the time he started making the TV shows. Like when he was doing the Clone Wars and he was getting that whole Coruscant, like 17, or whatever, 13, something like that.
Yeah, the underworld.
Yeah, the underworld thing, right.
Yeah.
Around the time he was doing that, I remember him saying in an interview that he was toying with the idea of letting other directors make Star Wars films that he would more or less oversee. And if they wanted to use expanded universe stories that, again, he would kind of have to approve that or whatever, but he would be up for that. He wasn't going to do Zahn's like 7, 8, and 9 because he had his own ideas for 7, 8, and 9, which he was actually going to make. That's why he was getting Hamill and Fisher together, for dinner, because he was going to do it himself, and then the Disney sale, hit shortly thereafter. And man, I mean, it just, I got to get to Universal's comment, but I got to say, I remember the excitement that I had of what could be. Like, ooh, we're finally going to get 7, 8, and 9. And I had all these ideas that, of course, were completely smashed by Disney's handling of the franchise. But spilled milk, right? All right. Universal says, story premise is failed Jedi Sith finds and trains a very young Padawan. Brother of failed Jedi Sith is a general, and female apprentice try to get brother to return to Empire with the Padawan. I mean, that would be cool. And again, this goes into now, I could actually see them doing a combination of lore and, war, and maybe make it a little bit grounded. He said they want to film this fall and release it in the fall of 2027. Until it's greenlit, nothing is happening. Well, yeah, whatever you're reading is saying the fall. Everything that I've looked at says it's actually coming out on May 28th. I mean, they're really specific about the date, so I don't know if that's another.
They never really give out dates, like the specific date. They always say like fall, like you said.
Right.
Very rarely do we get like, oh, it's Tuesday, May 28th.
That's right. That's pretty specific. So I don't know. I mean, look, the bottom line is, even if it is greenlit, doesn't mean it's coming out.
Right.
So the fact that it's greenlit or not doesn't really matter. I mean, if it's not officially greenlit, I don't know where that date's coming from. That's the wonders of the internet, right? I mean, you can see all this really official looking stuff, and it might be a bunch of crap. We don't know. But then again, like we've said a million times, even with Lucasfilm themselves, they'll make announcements and nothing happens. So, I mean, you can't even take their announcements seriously.
True.
I mean, it's it's a wonderful time to be a Star Wars fan, right? But
yeah,
I mean, hey, it's cool. I mean, look, the bottom line is, so the Mandalorian Grogu, we know that's coming out.
Yeah,
that's a done deal. I mean, unless something really catastrophic happens, that's going to happen. We know Ahsoka season 2 is going to come out probably. I think it was next year as well. And I always like to do this. And we know Vision season 3 is coming out next year. I'm sorry, I had to do it.
Yes. Now, there's something from the article. I think this is where I read
found something.
Like,
I had to do it.
So it said, while this new bodes well for Kinberg's trilogy, it could be a sign of things to come in a larger franchise as well. Just given Andor's success and popularity, it's easy to imagine that more than just this new trilogy will be influenced by the show. This will correspond with Andor showrunner Tony Gilroy's hope for the show's impact, which included that would break new ground, get people excited to do other things, and allow other projects to do anything. See that? I mean, and while I hear the spirit of what Tony Gilroy is saying, that concerns me a little bit, because that's the problem. They have just been doing anything. And that's why things suck. And
Well, but you get where he's coming from. See, I think
that's
what
what I'm saying.
he's
Like, I get where
what
he's
he's
coming
talking
from, like
about is more like what
the
we were
spirit of
talking
what
about.
he's saying.
Well, like
Yeah.
what you and I had always said, right? They can make any genre. They can make any, it doesn't necessarily have to involve, like, once they can get away from the Skywalker saga, you could tell, because we had always talked about, like a horror
Mhm.
movie in the Star Wars universe or a political thriller or anything. They could do anything. What you're talking about is true. It's like, but what they're doing, like they're quote unquote doing anything, is with the actual characters that we all know and love, and they're messing it all up. And then they're
Or they
throwing the
just
acolyte out. I mean, what they
or,
told us it was going to be and what it was two different things.
that was gonna be my thing. Like the acolyte is a prime example of just doing anything. Like, okay, concept initially was kind of cool, but it seemed a little bit convoluted at first, because at first they were talking about, oh, it's more like Dr. Afra, or kind of like a Indiana Jones
Well, right.
type thing,
Now,
and
see,
then it
and
was like,
that was the thing that was bothering me when they said, "Oh, it's going to be part, like Jedi's or like a Sith and a Sith apprentice. We're finally going to see like the flip side of that kind of a training thing." But then they started saying, "Oh, it's going to have like an Indiana Jones element." That was the first thing that I thought of. I'm like, well, if you're going to do that, make a Dr. Aphra series. I'd be on board
mhm.
with that. That would be awesome. Or a trilogy, even. I
Yeah,
mean,
but see,
see,
my thing
right
is,
there, you would have, because they always did the Indiana Jones thing, and that's wildly successful on the last few,
mhm.
but I mean, you could actually combine the two. I mean, how cool is that you actually have, and this is where Lucasfilm just drives me nuts sometimes. You have an Indiana Jones in your franchise right now in the form of Dr. Afra. You can
Well, not only that,
completely
but
make
Lucasfilm actually does Indiana Jones,
right. That's my
don't they?
point. My point is they have this other franchise that's really successful along with Star Wars. They're
Right.
capitalizing on both. But the thing is, they can unite them because they already
Hmm.
have in the form of the
Yeah.
comics, at least. But I mean, you could bring that because that could work either as a television series or a film or a trilogy or, well, really both. You could start out in the films and then branch off. And you have it. You have this built-in thing that you could pursue right now that there's enough of a core fan base for, and you can expand it. And because Indiana Jones appealed, see, my point in bringing this up is Indiana Jones appealed to a wider audience than Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, you combine the two. Now you've brought that wide Indiana Jones audience into Star Wars. And now you offer
Hmm.
them other stuff. And then people stay. And then that's how you. All right, let me get, because Universal's been chatting here. He says, originally they announced a May 2027 release. It's now fall of 2027. And then he brings up the date. He says, Dawn of the Jedi is also not greenlit. Well, yeah, we knew that. But they want to start filming in winter 2025, spring 2026. Then he says, lots of talk, nothing can. Yeah, well, that's Lucasfilm. Look, Lucasfilm is, like I said, even if it is confirmed, doesn't mean it's going to be released or
Hmm.
made. Look, the Rey movie was not only confirmed, but was supposed to start shooting like last April. And then they pulled the plug. Then it was going to shoot, I think, like the summer or something. And then they pulled the plug. They keep pulling the plug on this thing. So much so that they've had Daisy Ridley locked up for a while. I mean, she was locked in. There were some contracts signed. I mean, that's about as greenlit as you can get, where they've done pre-production and they're starting the thing. And then they don't. So, he says the only projects confirmed are Mando movie, Ahsoka show, Visions. There you go. Lego, which, by the way, Daisy Ridley is going to be in this like latest Lego movie as Rey. And Maul and 2 other unannounced projects coming. Yeah, like Lando, anyone? Remember that? They announced
Still
that how many
nothing.
years ago? And then
Yeah.
it disappeared for a while. And then it went. Universal says Rey movie was never confirmed, only the internet confirmed it. I don't know, man. I remember a Lucasfilm story. I remember an interview with Kathleen Kennedy, how they were going to start shooting. So I don't know about that one. But again, we could debate that, but why? That's not
Right.
true either. Universal says Ray movie was never greenlit, never had confirmed scripts. Yes, it did, because Daisy Ridley was talking about how she read the script and how she was really excited to do that. She was really excited to do the movie, so it absolutely had scripts. But again, we could debate this over and over, but it doesn't matter, because where is it, right? Where's all the projects when they announced it? Celebration, not the last one, but a couple of celebrations ago, like when they announced Lando. And that was Kathleen Kennedy, by the way, herself, the president of Lucasfilm. That was the president announcing these projects. Nothing.
No.
And that's part of what Star Wars, that's the problem that the franchise has. Yeah, you can't count on anything they say. He says, those were drafts. Well, again, I remember very clearly them saying they were starting to shoot in April. She read the scripts. They were all going to move on it. They were probably going to move forward, but again, it doesn't matter. Like I said, we can argue about it if you want, but it doesn't matter. Because again, there's things that are clearly very greenlit that never happened either. Because the stuff just doesn't... I mean, I don't know if she gets cold feet. She changes directors, like, at a whim, because she decides she doesn't like the movie when it's 50% in. So who knows? But I will say this. On one hand, and this goes back to the actual topic at hand, the discussion around future projects taking their cue from Andor. I think we can all agree that if they're talking about developed characters, well-written stories, well-executed projects, then I think everybody's on board.
Pretty much.
Oh yeah, I meant to bring this up. Thank you, Universal. I'm glad he brought this up. Oh yeah, right. Exactly. He says they settled with Gina to avoid the Acolyte debacle. Yes. In case, because we haven't actually had a show since they did that, but they did settle with Gina Carano. Probably because, they wanted to avoid... I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that they're trying to clean up right now. So I'm really curious on a couple of things, because one of the stipulations, she actually wanted to work again for them. Like, she wanted to be reinstated. Now, they could do a number of different things. They could either bring her back as...
Acolyte.
Yeah, season 2, right? They could either bring her back as Cara Dune, which is probably unlikely, but they could do that. They could also resurrect that, what was that, Republic Commando type movie or something. Remember, that was the next thing she was supposed to be in. She was supposed to be in that... what was that called? There was a title.
Yes, I know.
Come on,
exactly
Universal,
what you're
you got
about.
all the information tonight. What was it called? I'll bet you he chats it in.
Crap, what was the name of that thing?
God, I know. It was like it's on the tip of my tongue. It's because it was all set to go.
Rangers of the New Republic.
Rangers of the New Republic. That was it. Yes. Yeah, they could do that if they want. So, I'm hoping that they do something with her, because it was kind of unfortunate that all that went down. Oh wait, he says, hold on. Here it comes. Oh, this is fascinating. He says they would like her to return for Mando 2 movie. So, yeah. Now, he said Rogue Squadron. That was a Patty Jenkins thing. We were talking about Rangers of the New Republic. Rangers of the New Republic was going to be her starring vehicle. That would have been interesting. Yeah, I know that's not happening. But the Mando 2 thing would be interesting. I mean, ultimately, I would like for her to be Cara Dune again. I think that
Yeah.
that would be the best thing. All right, well, as you guys know, it's about that time. About time to
At
wrap
that
it
time.
up. So let us know what you guys think. Do you want to see more projects that are in the same style, tone, grounded nature of Andor? Do you want them to just take the stuff from Andor that made Andor popular, like well-developed scripts, good characters, good stories, that kind of thing? Let us know in the comments what you guys think of this whole article and everything else. And while you're at it, let us know what you are looking forward to most coming up in the Star Wars universe or franchise. Although whether it happens or not is a different story, but at least what you're looking forward to that you think is happening. I mean, I will say this. I'm really looking forward to this Mando and Grogu movie. I'm really curious on what they're going to do.
Yeah, I want to know where they're going with the story.
Yep. So that would probably be it for that. But as usual, again, guys, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks Ted and Universal for chatting in tonight. It's good conversation. Ted even chatted in. It's been fun, gang. May the force be with you all this week. Well, speaking of which, next Sunday we won't be live because I'm going to be working. I'm going to try to see if maybe we can get a pre-recorded show in the show, and then put the chats up or whatever. I might be able to chat actually, but can't do it live next week. But just watch for that. So we'll have to see. All right. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We all have to say that if we're on YouTube. But if you guys got any entertainment value out of this at all, make sure you hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. Some people that watch this show watch it regularly but never hit the subscribe button. So hit that subscribe button. And then, of course, don't forget to hit the notification bell, because a lot of times our schedule does fluctuate, and you definitely want to be motivated. Oh, he says, before you go, this weekend is Disney Showcase. They're announcing some things on Saturday morning. Oh, really? Ooh. Yeah. All right, well, I'll try to watch. I'll be working this jazz festival all weekend. So that's why I can't be live. But I mean, if I can do it, but I mean, I'm definitely going to keep track of basically, what's happening though. And then maybe we'll talk about it on the next live show. Maybe that'll actually be the topic. This this Disney Showcase thing, or upcoming projects or something like that. Those are always fun to do, right? And then speculate which ones will actually be made.
All the ones we actually care about, right?
Right. Well, that too, right? Like, which ones do we even care about? All right. Well, you got something to say? Oh, look at you.
This last. No, just
about to wrap it up, and you came in with something.
That was quick. So if you're much like me, if you're Batman fans, they're releasing the 1989 Batman and Batman Returns as a double feature tomorrow at the AMC theaters. So if you guys got some time and you're living in the States, check your local areas. They probably will be showing that feature of the 89.
Ooh, as a double feature, that'd be kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
Universal asked if I play an instrument. No, I'm doing the LED walls there. So it's kind of like a behind the scenes. I do play an instrument, though. I do play bass.
But he's not playing at the jazz.
I'm not playing.
He does play jazz.
Yes. Yeah. I've been in a bunch of bands, even a couple of jazz bands, actually, but mostly like rock and metal. And yeah, I mean, I Spotify, we got a bunch of our stuff on there, and Apple Music and the whole shot. So yes, I do play an instrument. But no, I'm not performing this weekend. This weekend, it's my day job, live event production support. So that's going to be the Detroit Jazz Festival, which is a free festival. It's the only free festival in the world. So if you're actually in that area or whatever, and you're a jazz fan, you might want to check that out. Look at this. We're actually advertising all this stuff that's coming up. But that Batman thing sounds cool. I knew they were re-releasing the original. I didn't know that Batman Returns was part of that. And that's tomorrow? Is it like a one-night only thing?
I think so. I think it's a one night only. And then they're also
the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Aren't they doing the music of Batman or something?
I think they did that already. I think that one passed.
Yeah,
but I know they are. What's it next year? If they haven't done it already this year, because I know they brought back the original Ninja Turtles movie back into the theaters.
Yeah, that actually was this
that got
past
like
weekend.
3.3 million. Yeah, they got like 3.3 million dollars, and then they're going to re-release Secret of the Ooze next year.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
which is well, I go between, but I think Secret of the Ooze is probably my favorite one. But
yeah, I think so.
that's my favorite one. But although I do love the first one too, though. Like
Oh, he says Universal says they are also re-releasing Star Wars as well.
Oh yeah,
They are. Yeah, The New Hope. The New Hope.
yep,
Yep.
yep. That's
And people
right.
have been wondering, is it going to be the theatrical, like the original? It's like it's not going to be the original
No,
theatrical
they're always going
release.
to do a
Like,
special edition. Yeah, yeah, they
jeez,
definitely
people.
going to. No.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
not in this day and age.
Well, actually,
everybody
no.
was
In Britain, though, they did, I think, release the original theatrical version because
Yeah,
everybody
they
was
did,
shocked
yeah.
about that. But the re-release of here, I don't think is going to be that.
No, it's definitely going to be the special edition version.
Watch, it'll probably be the theatrical one, and then we'll look stupid. Well, it wouldn't be the first time. All right, well, guys, it's been fun. It's been real. We appreciate you. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the flip side. With that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the force be with you, always.